If you have any complaints or comments about Court TV's programming, you're invited to call 212-973-3383 and let us know.
Welcome to this edition of Miller's Law. I'm Arthur Miller. Most people know me as a law professor and a television host. My friends also know me in another role. As a father, I've got a son. He's an adult now, but like virtually all parents, I worried about his safety while he was growing up and hoped that he wouldn't injure anyone else. Well, except for crashing into someone while skiing when he was 16, my son fortunately didn't cause any accidents as a youngster. I wish this were the case for this little girl, Brittany Newton, who was accidentally shot in the head by her 3-year-old brother Jonathan Brittany. Brittany and Jonathan's parents are Ernie and Mona Newton. Ernie is a truck driver, Mona a physician's assistant. Both are avid churchgoers in Jacksonville, Florida. Because the Newtons owned the loaded gun that resulted in their daughter's death, they were charged and ultimately convicted of causing the death of their daughter. Later in the program, we'll look at parental responsibility. Can you be held liable for the acts of your children, be they infants or teenagers? But first, we turn to the complex world of electronic privacy. Who knows what about you? How do they know it? Have they obtained that information legally? And what can you do about it? Let me give you 3 examples of how one's privacy can be invaded. 1. Remember the actress Rebecca Schaefer, who starred in the hit sitcom My Sister Sam? Schaefer was stalked by an obsessed fan, Robert Bardo, who hired a private detective to find out where Schaefer lived. The detective obtained a copy of Schaefer's driver's license from the Department of Motor Vehicles. Once Bardo knew of Schaefer's home address, he tracked her down and shot her to death on her Hollywood doorstep. 2. Ross Perot. He allegedly ran background checks on volunteers working on his 1992 presidential campaign, looking specifically into their financial credit files. 3. Buns of Steel. Yes, all of you who bought this exercise video cassette have probably had your name sold by the video's producer to companies marketing other aerobic and fitness products. There's no question that computers have the ability to know not only the basics of our daily lives, age, social security number, home address, but also some highly personal facts, like maybe you have scalp psoriasis, or sadly a close relative has just passed away. Joining me to discuss the issue of high-tech invasion of privacy are 3 distinguished guests. Robert Ellis Smith is a lawyer and the publisher of Privacy Journal, a monthly publication on privacy in the computer age. Larry Tye is an investigative reporter who wrote a 4-part series recently entitled No Private Lives for the Boston Globe newspaper. And in our newsroom is Bo Dietl, certainly a familiar face to faithful Miller's Law viewers. Bo is the founder and president of Bo Dietl & Associates, a private investigation company, which he says has access to 1,500 databases to track down their investigatees. Bob, Larry, Bo, welcome. Now, come on, guys. Is this just paranoia, Larry? Are they really gathering information about us out there?
Actually, we were convinced that our readers might believe that it was just paranoia and that it would all seem very abstract to them. So we took 4 very real people. We took a basketball star, M.L. Carr of the Boston Celtics, a woman who is the acting chief of the U.S. Consumer Protection Agency, a leading Boston businessman, and an ex-con in the Boston area, and we went out and tried to see what we could find out about them. And we came back with detailed, intimate profiles that included things with M.L. Carr, like the fact that he had started 6 businesses over the last several years, and that 3 of them had been dissolved. We looked at the number of speeding tickets he had gotten. We could tell you where he lived, what his home cost him, what his home was worth today, all kinds of intimate details of his life, including his unlisted phone number. And that unlisted phone number actually took us about 15 minutes to get for $69 from a Florida company that will find out everything ranging from unlisted numbers to medical records.
So there are folks out there who'll do this for a buck, huh?
For a few bucks.
For
yeah.
a few bucks. Now,
For a few bucks.
now, Robert, let me ask you the classic question. Who cares?
Well, as you see with the Rebecca Schaefer case, it can have real costs, and it's also an intrusion. I mean, privacy is hard to quantify, but it hurts, you know. The privacy is the sense of control you have over information about yourself, and when it's held by third parties, especially third parties operating very impersonal machines, that means you have no control.
Yeah,
so
but what can they do to me with that information? I mean, Larry makes the case that, yeah, they can find out a lot about me if they want, but what can they do to me that I should worry about?
Well, the loss of credit first, which can keep you out of the home buying market, can deprive you of buying an automobile. You really can't get along in this society not only without credit but without insurance. It can cost you insurance. It can cost you employment. It can hold you up to ridicule.
But if I don't deserve insurance, why should I get insurance?
Well, that's a different situation, but there's a lot of information. First of all, it's inaccurate in all of these databases, but secondly, there's a lot of information that may be accurate but create a very distorted picture of you, and because of that, you might be totally excluded from not only the insurance and credit worlds, but also employment.
Say, Bo,
Yes,
you say you've got access to all these databases?
Well, we have access to several hundred databases across the United States in different avenues of our investigative abilities. And I'm talking about databases that go into, if a business, say, is looking to invest into another business, I think it's kind of important for that business to understand what the other business structure is all about. Who are the principals of the business? What was their history? What money am I going to put in? If I'm going to invest $10 million into a car wash company out in California, I want to know who the principals are, how they put this corporation together. And I think it's the rights of that individual out there who's investing their money to know a little something about the person they're investing in. Everybody wants to talk about what happened in California, about this actress that was murdered, but how about if, as a private investigator, she hired us to look in the background of this stalker? I think I'd like to find out about his criminal history, something about his driver's license, something about, through investigative actions, find out what was he all about. Maybe we could have avoided that woman being killed out there. So it's a double-edged sword.
I think there's a little more to that, too. If a lawyer wants to check out potential jurors, they'll call a company like Bose, or if a politician wants to check out an opponent, they most likely would check with him, or somebody wants to check out a potential son-in-law.
Hey, Bo, are you checking me out?
I started to check you out at 6 o'clock
I know you have this perverse sense of humor, and
No,
I have
I
this
have no
feeling.
perverse sense of humor, but you don't know about the 2 children that you fathered a few years ago.
Well, if I don't know about it, I guess it can't hurt me, right?
Next show will be about libel.
No, but be honest with you, very honest with you. You have a corporation. You're going to hire people. Say if you're going to be a domestic person in a home, and you have people watching your children. I think it's your right to ask them about a little bit of a background. I mean, to ask somebody about a little bit of a background, what you do is you check out their driver's license. You get permission to get a credit report. You can't get credit reports unless you get permission from the person. With the credit report, you get a lot of things. As I said, with the driver's license, with the criminal background of counties that they've lived in for the last couple of years, you check it out. Also, people don't really understand when you have a voter registration card. This is all public access, and I don't think anything's wrong. Hey, if I'm going into business and I all of a sudden went bankrupt in 4 other businesses, I think you should have the right to know about that person you're going into business with. People don't want to spend a couple of dollars for due diligence. You spend $5,000, $10,000 if you're doing $11 or $15 million project. Come on now. I'd like to know about these persons who have defrauded other people.
Bo, you make a good case, but I got 2 people up here who seem a little dubious about this notion, particularly about the credit reports.
And particularly about the permission. I think most people don't give permission, and that's what I think we might want to address here in a minute.
Yeah, it's not required that you have permission, but in fact, the databases you're accessing are inaccurate. 1/3 of the people who access their own credit reports come back dissatisfied and say they're inaccurate. Most criminal files are inaccurate.
Well,
I also think, Bo, that you talked about the idea of people having to give permission to get their credit reports. One of the things that we found out that was most disturbing in the kind of information we were getting on people is that people don't generally know that information is being circulated on them. We found that at a guest house in Provincetown, Massachusetts, that people, simply by signing the guest register or finding that their name was being circulated on the mailing list, identifying them as wealthy lesbian women. And the fact is, a lot of the people that we contacted who had signed that guest register were neither wealthy nor lesbians and didn't appreciate being targeted, having their names going across the country and getting mailings. And that is typical of the kind of things that happen, that we end up on thousands of mailing lists where we've never given our consent and we had no idea our name was being circulated.
If you're going to properly investigate someone, they give you permission to investigate their credit report. We do. There's 3 main credit companies. You have TRW and the other 2. We do all 3 of them. We compare our information and we see if that it's factual information. I certainly would like to know, if I'm going to invest with you, Mr. Miller, or anyone else, I'd like to know what your background is. Have you gone bankrupt 15 times before? I think it's my right to know what you're all about.
Well, maybe in that situation, but I think Larry and Robert up here are talking about the number of situations in which individuals find themselves in a data bank and they have not a clue as to how that information got there, how they can confront it, what decisions are being made about them. But in any event, Bo, we need to go to a commercial break, so I'm going to shut you up. When we return, we'll take your phone calls. The number here is 212-557-1301. Are you worried about your loss of privacy as we enter the 21st century? Or, as Bo Dietl says, is a little loss of privacy the price we have to pay for conveniences such as ATM machines and cellular car phones? And let's find out in a while what Bo found out about me. We'll be right back.
Do you find that life just takes your breath away?
Bill, you better get on track.
Then get on track with Nordic Trek, the world's best aerobic exerciser. Nordic Trek simulates the motion of cross-country skiing to give you a superior aerobic workout. It's the only exerciser with the patented flywheel for a smooth workout that's easy on your joints. It strengthens your heart and lungs, increases your energy, and gets you in shape for life's challenges in only 20 minutes, 3 times a week. Does daily stress sometimes get to be too much?
Bill, you're late for the staff meeting. Your 9 o'clock appointment is early and line 1 is still holding. You really need to get on track.
Get on track with Nordic Trek, the world's best aerobic exerciser. Regular exercise on Nordic Trek helps you relieve stress, anxiety, and increase your productivity. Its patented flywheel most accurately simulates cross-country skiing for a smooth, total body workout that's non-jarring and easy on your joints. Best of all, it doesn't take a lot of time. Just 20 minutes 3 times a week. Are you finding it harder and harder to make ends meet?
Bill, your blood pressure's still too high. You need to lose some weight. You better get on track.
Get on track with Nordic Trek. Research shows that Nordic Trek, by working both your upper and lower body, burns more calories and fat than ordinary exercisers. And regular exercise on Nordic Trek helps you control your cholesterol levels, blood pressure, and keeps your heart healthy. Plus, Nordic Trek can help you manage stress. Are you ready to get on track? Then call now and discover what over 1 million Americans already know. The best way to meet your fitness goals at home is with Nordic Trek. Discover for yourself why Nordic Trek is called the world's best aerobic exerciser. With Nordic Trek, you'll increase your energy, feel less stress and anxiety, take weight off, and improve your overall health. Call today for a free video and brochure and get on track with Nordic Trek.
Those your grades?
Yep. I don't think that I deserved an F. Do you?
You can't do that.
Already done.
That was Matthew Broderick and Ali Sheedy in a scene from War Games, a film about a young computer hacker who accidentally breaks into the Defense Department's main computer. It's frightening how easy it was for Matthew Broderick's character to change the school grades with a single computer keystroke. What's even more frightening is the fact that it's not just Hollywood's imagination we were watching, it can be done. We're talking in this hour about electronic privacy and laws surrounding the use of computer databases, credit files, medical insurance records, you name it. Robert, how do you protect yourself?
Well, first of all, there are some laws that give you access to data about yourself, notably with credit reports, but also federal government reports and school records. So you should exercise your rights to inspect information about yourself, correct it if necessary, make sure you put your side of the story.
You can gain access to it under these statutes.
Yeah, absolutely. And even when you don't have that right,
all right, let's say I've been turned down for credit.
Well, you're going to be told, first of all, that you were, and that such and such a credit bureau issued a report on you, and you should immediately call them and make arrangements to check it for accuracy. But you ought to do that before you apply for credit. You ought to anticipate that there's probably something in that report that's going to cause a distortion, and you should get that corrected.
It sounds to me as if everyone should do sort of a credit look-in.
Oh, I think so.
Every year?
Well, maybe less. It depends what point in the credit world you are. If you've got your mortgage and you're pretty well secure and you bought all the cars on credit you plan to, you wouldn't have to do it that often. But you should anticipate, and especially if you've been the victim of credit card fraud, you should check probably every month to make sure your credit record is accurate.
Professor?
Yes?
You know, we're doing work now for a large banking concern. What's happening is you have these new mortgage brokers out there. Mortgage brokers are not regulated by anybody. What they do is they all of a sudden bring this person into a mortgage banker and they said they've checked out. We're finding fraudulent W-2 forms. These computers could kick out W-2 forms now. What we have to do is we have to start checking. We had the S&L scandal of the 1980s. We all know about it. Monies were given out to people without any due diligence done prior. What they were doing, they were investing. Some people have sold properties and they're still getting credit on it. So I mean, the people out there should have a right to hire people like myself, not just with government agencies. You should have the right to hire a private concern to protect your funds and your assets and your capital. What is the Privacy Act if it's going to affect your pocketbook?
Well, Larry, Bo consistently makes the good point that being able to get at information about other people protects you, the individual, against fraud. Whereas you two guys keep talking about the fact that information can hurt you. So how do you strike a balance there?
I think what you do, first of all, people have to realize that as consumers they have tremendous power in what they can give out or not give out. When they go into a store and somebody has them sign a credit card and then suddenly ask them for their phone number or asks them irrelevant questions, they can say no. They don't have to give out this information. And they should know when they do give it out, it's probably going to put them on a mailing list or to come back at them and try to sell them something. And that the easiest way to keep their mail down, to keep their names off lists, and to generally control the information they give out on them is to give out very limited
Give as little as possible.
Give as little as possible.
But look, I'm the beggar. I want credit. I want insurance. I want a job. Don't have to fill out the form.
They want to do business with you, and the credit companies want to do business with you. Radio Shack, when you go in and they demand your phone number, wants to do business with you. All of these companies look to you as a consumer, as their customer, and if you say no to irrelevant information, they're going to still do business. They're not going to say, go away and don't deal with us.
All right, we've got to talk to Cynthia in Toledo, Ohio. Cynthia?
Yes.
Good evening.
Good evening.
You have a question or a comment?
Yes, I do. I'm particularly interested in the portion that you were talking about, my privacy. I want to know, how can I protect my TRW from getting out there if it doesn't look so good? Is there a way for them, to protect myself?
Well, if there's an explanation for some of the negative information, I think that you ought to have a letter to that effect and show it to creditors before they pull a credit file on you. That's one thing that you can do.
Professor Miller?
Yes,
Professor Miller, in response to that call, I do agree with this young lady that called up on the phone there. My biggest problem was when I didn't pay a bill that I was disputing. It came on my credit report, and it was on my credit report for a number of years, which I fought, and I fought very hard. It was an American Express bill that I fought very hard. I think there should be some regulations to it if it's in a communication that you're feeling as though you're not responsible for that. I don't think that should be able to be put on a bill unless you're convicted of it. What I'm saying is, if you're not convicted of it, that you did it, it shouldn't be on your credit report. If you have a communication there that you didn't feel as though you paid for that, you shouldn't be there.
Seems to me Bo makes my point that a lot of the databases he's accessing have half-truths in them.
All right. The other point is that I think Bo's assumption is that people are only allowed to look at credit reports when they get the individual's permission. In fact, there was a study done by the head of the New York City Consumer Affairs Office showing that 35% of the credit reporting companies that they called gave them credit reports on total strangers with no permission.
Okay.
These reports are really easy to access.
Well, let me tell you something. As far as the public information law goes, if you search a court file, you'll find out in a court file, this is all public information again, you'll find sometimes in a court file a credit report, which in reality, if it's in a court file and it's public information, you can then use it. If it's accessed as a public record and it's there, you can use it. This is the fine line. It's a gray area, and that's one thing that we have to, as private investigators, stay on the right side of the law.
Let's talk to Kelly from New York City. Kelly?
Yes.
Question.
Yes, I'm really curious. If a person is a celebrity and they want to protect themselves, which I think is a far more serious matter than your TRW getting out somewhere, what do you do?
Other than wear dark glasses and a big hat, huh?
Yeah.
Well, I think you have more than one phone number, one a public phone, one a private phone. You have more than one address. You have what I call a buffer address, which might be an agent or a box number or a landlord. And you do as much as you can to protect the identity of your residence. That's not paranoid anymore for a celebrity or a non-famous person to want to make sure that the identity of their address is not necessarily publicly known.
But as ML Carr found out, he thought he had an unlisted phone number, and he thought that was totally protected. And it took us exactly, as I mentioned, 15 minutes and $69 to find his unlisted number. And there was all kinds of other information on him that we found very easily.
Well, the truth is, Larry, the truth is, when the telephone company sells you an unlisted number, the only thing it is selling you is the fact that they will not list you. They are not promising anything else, and most people are taken in by the notion of the unlisted telephone.
Professor Miller.
Yes, Bo.
You know, as I said, I agree on people's privacy. I certainly don't want anybody to know my unlisted number. I'm a former New York detective. I don't want people to know my number. But the fact of the matter is, if they get my address, which they can get very easily, they call up my next-door neighbor who knows me they use ruses, and that's not illegal, where they'll say, oh, I used to go to high school with Bo in Richmond Hill High School, and I haven't seen him in a long time. Hey, do you have his number? And people will give it up. That's not illegally obtaining information.
We're just vulnerable to that.
I know, everyone's vulnerable. Everyone likes to talk. The problem with people are they talk too damn much, and they give up your privacy and my privacy. I am a very strong supporter of people's privacy, but then on the other hand, when you hire me to do an investigation, to find out if you're investing millions of dollars or you're investigating someone who's stalking your daughter, I'd like to find out information about him to maybe save your daughter or to maybe make your investment a real profitable investment.
All right, we need to take another commercial break. When we come back, we'll find out what Bo's found out about me, and we'll take more of your telephone calls. Remember, the number is 212-557-1301. As we go to this break, we'll show you a list of federal laws that exist to protect your electronic privacy. We'll be right back.
Button, button. Who's got the button? You've got drawers full of them, sewing kits full of them, but putting them on is a major hassle. Singer has the way to attach it, and it's never been easier. Introducing the Singer Button Magic. Now when that button pops off, you can pop it back on almost as quickly. Just mark your spot, center the fabric, insert the button, and let Button Magic do the rest. Presto, it's attached, and the thread is cut automatically. What could be simpler than that? Put buttons on blouses, buttons on skirts, buttons on sweaters, buttons on shirts. For any 2-hole button, just keep the button selector on setting 1. For 4-hole buttons, switch to setting 2. And like magic, Button Magic sews the second pair of holes. Why go through this every time a button comes loose? With Button Magic, your button attaches in seconds and stays attached, sewn on like new. No annoying cords, no batteries to replace. A few simple squeezes and your button is secure. Its compact design is perfect for home, at the office, or even when traveling. But here's the best part. Button Magic is a genuine Singer, with Singer quality you can depend on. And if you order now, you'll also get this 26-piece Singer accessory pack, 4 extra spools with thread, an extra needle, a needle threader, and 20 beautiful pearlized buttons. The Singer Button Magic. It's an incredible Singer value at only $29.95. There's never been an easier way to sew on buttons, so button yours down now.
Call toll-free 1-800-532-3400. That's 1-800-532-3400. Or send $29.95 plus $4.50 shipping and handling to Singer Button Magic, 2 Morgan Avenue, Norwalk, Connecticut, 06851. For fastest delivery, use your credit card and call 1-800-532-3400.
Welcome back to Miller's Law. We're talking about electronic privacy, or as our guest Larry Tye refers to the subject, data rape. Larry's a reporter for the Boston Globe, and he investigated the backgrounds of 4 individuals, including the former Boston Celtics star ML Carr, just to see how easy it is to obtain personal information through computers, whether you want to know what kind of a car a person drives or how much money their neighbors earn annually. Also joining me are Robert Ellis Smith, a well-known expert in privacy law, and Bo Dietl, a private investigator whose company has access to 1,500 databanks. Now, we've got a lot of calls. Steve, down in Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening. My question is, if you use a scanner to record a phone call that is broadcast on the 46 megahertz that the cordless phones use, can that recorded phone call be used as evidence in a court of law? And this is regarding a divorce adultery trial.
Oh, this is not a hypothetical. Somehow I know.
Not at all. Judge Miller?
Yeah, Judge Miller, you've promoted me, Bo?
Excuse me, Professor. Under the law of the U.S. Code, it is illegally obtained information. You cannot obtain information to be used in any case in that form or fashion, as long as you're not part of the conversation. End of story.
But this is a conversation that did not occur over a wire phone, but a cordless phone, and that might make a difference.
Makes no difference. It's a frequency.
Yeah, maybe you can't get it into evidence,
That's
but
right.
it can be very dangerous.
I'm not sure it's illegal at this point.
Okay, let's talk to Carl down in Arlington, Virginia. Carl?
Hi, how you doing?
I'm fine, and you?
Just fine. I was wondering if one of your experts could comment on the availability of medical records in these databases.
One of my favorite subjects. Credit's one thing, bad if it's improperly obtained, but what about medical records?
Well, I think with the President's plan announced this evening, we're going to see a lot more circulation of medical records throughout the medical establishment and the insurance establishment. Already, a lot of employers have medical records because your medical insurance is administered where you work. there is in Boston a huge database with 17 million medical summaries on it called the MIB, and they will service life insurers to describe your prior medical history when you apply for insurance.
So despite doctor-patient privilege, a lot of this stuff is circulating?
Yes.
It's not only circulating, there are lists for sale of tens of thousands of people who have hypertension, people who have bleeding gums, women who have bladder control problems. People sign questionnaires or they call in for various products and their name ends up on a list telling anybody who wants to buy that list all the medical ills that they have.
How do I protect myself? How does Carl protect himself?
Well, we should tell Carl that, contrary to belief, not many states have protections for medical records. The only protection is the ethical standard in the profession, but there are no laws in most states protecting medical information. It's the great gap. We shouldn't have any health care reform system in this country until we take care of that problem and protect medical records with federal legislation.
Are you really saying we're helpless?
Well, doctors do have some standards, and people would not patronize hospitals if they willy-nilly gave out information. But there are no legal protections right now.
You know, but the other thing is also, if I'm going to a hospital and all of a sudden that hospital has been the subject of 50 lawsuits for malpractice, I certainly want to know about that. I don't want to go to that hospital and get opened up with doctors that are not really doing proper work on me. So I mean, it's a double-edged sword again. You should have the knowledge of the hospital or the doctor that you are
Well, that's
going
different.
with.
We're talking about personal information.
We're talking about the patient, well, the patient. But there is a point there. Doctors want their privacy the way we patients want our privacy. Let's talk to Kevin out in Alameda, California.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm fine. Fire away.
I am being investigated right now as a matter of employment that concerns me, and I've worked at the same place for a year and a half with absolutely no problem at my place of employment. And someone, a third party that has nothing to do with me personally, has decided to investigate me. And I do have some things in my past that I would prefer my employers not know about, although personal relationships I can discuss it with. And he has got some damaging information on me, and claims that it is all legally gotten. And I'd like to find out what
you want to know what he's got on you. Or do you want to stop him?
I'm pretty sure I know what he has on me, but what I'm concerned about is how he got it and what his rights were in getting it, in that he had no legitimate business reason for gaining this access to my credit history, DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles, et cetera, et cetera.
The only way, Professor, the only way that we can obtain information legally on, say if I was investigating this gentleman, he would have to give her permission to get the credit report, also through the motor vehicles, and also the county where he lived in the last few years, so we can check any criminal records on him. The fact of the matter is, no one can deny you employment on one of the three. If they deny you employment, then it comes under a federal statute. They cannot deny you employment for that. So no matter how they obtain that information, if you do find out that they're keeping you from having your job, go to a local federal office there and make a discrimination case against them. That's why we have the checks and balances in our government that I'm very proud. I was on both sides of it, and I feel as though it works.
Let's see if we can get in one last call. Joe from Fort Myers, Florida. What's up?
Hi, I would like to ask someone there. I have, my dilemma is a credit data. I feel like I'm a credit data victim. What happened with me is the past 4 years, I've been getting credit reports pulled on me where there's information on there. I don't know where they're getting it from, such as a car that I supposedly bought and never paid off, which is very untrue. I've been trying to fight it through the mail. I've been trying to fight it on the phone, and I'm not getting anywhere with this. And until I get it corrected, I can't seem to do anything. I can't even rent my car.
Hang on. Let's get Robert to answer. This is a classic.
We said you had rights, but nobody said it would be easy. And these credit bureaus are not attuned to correcting this sort of thing. I would seek out within the National Credit Bureau Company the person who is in charge of handling these kind of consumer difficulties.
I feel the same way. You know, I had my own personal problems with that, with the American Express, that I denied a charge, and I denied it all the way, and then all of a sudden I'm on the record there for defaulting on something, and I think it's very wrong. I think there should be an accessibility to get that off your record if you can prove it, and that's our biggest problem. They don't take it off these credit reports.
They are not responsive. That's the part. That's what I keep hearing, and what I keep hearing from Robert is that you've got to be as persistent or more persistent than they are. Now, Bo, we only got a minute left. What did you find out?
All right, first of all, I thought you were a lot younger man than you are, Professor.
Thanks a bunch.
Am I allowed to say your age, Professor?
Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
Well, we won't say your age. Anyway, you like the state of Massachusetts very well, and you've been there for the last quite a few years. And I'll tell you honestly, if I was a person that you wanted to go into business with, I'd certainly go into business with you. You have a $750,000 credit line.
Yeah, I do.
That's $750,000.
Let's have a party, huh?
They'll give you $750,000. As a matter of fact, I would. Part of the other things that I found out was that you've never had a bankruptcy, so that means that you're a pretty good risk.
At least not under this name.
You were late on one of your credit cards, but only 30 days late. And there's no suits were ever pending against you. To be been on this United States, the years that you've been here, you've gone through this country pretty good, and I think you're. I would like to have your credit report.
You mean I can stop sweating now?
Well, yeah. I'd like to hook into my my research analyzer there, who's been working on you since 6 o'clock, to see what he's got on you. As I said, since 6 o'clock this evening was the only time I really got it. You're on there, Bobby?
Yeah, I'm here.
Bobby, what did we find out about him?
Well, let's see. We've got here. He was got a BA at University of Rochester. Went to Harvard University. He's admitted to the bar in 1959. He used to roommate with a cousin, Arnold Greenberg, who became the CEO of Coleco Industries.
My God, how did you get that?
Let him go. Let him go, Professor. Let him go, Professor. Go ahead, Bobby.
Arnold Greenberg left or joined Coleco in 1956.
Okay, you can't say anything about Arnold Greenberg, and I got the last laugh here because we're going to cut you off before this gets dangerous.
Professor.
I got a lot more.
You're finished. Thanks, Bo, Larry, Robert. More of this on a later program. Up next, ever wished you could buy an insurance policy for your accident-prone child? We'll be looking at the laws surrounding parenting. Can you be held liable for the accidents your children cause or the crimes they commit which result in injury to someone else or damage to someone's property? We'll be right back.
The Menendez brothers might face the gas chamber for killing the people who gave them life, their parents.
This trial will take you behind the facade of the rich houses.
But did they kill in self-defense?
It will take you to the life that was experienced by Lau Menendez and his brother.
I would hear Jose's voice level raise, and then there would hear silence.
But I asked him, you mean you killed your parents? He said yes.
The Menendez brothers' murder trial, only on Court TV.
They don't live in the rainforest. They don't swim in the ocean or soar in the sky. Where they live, hope is the endangered species, as precious as any animal, plant, or habitat on Earth. Because every day, these children wake up in the toxic environment of poverty. Here, a sick baby will probably die for lack of a simple remedy made from water, sugar, and salt. Here, a little girl will never achieve her one dream, learning how to read. And right here in the United States, a frightened preschooler is locked alone in his apartment because his parents can't afford daycare. All over the world, millions of precious children are hungry, hurting, afraid. But for many of them, there is hope through the work of Save the Children and the generosity of people like you. Save the Children fights the poverty and hunger that destroy children's lives. They know how to make the suffering stop, but they need you to help. It's simple to do. Just pick up the phone and say you'll be a Save the Children sponsor. We'll rush you the name and story of a little child who urgently needs you. A photograph will follow, and from then on, you'll receive regular word of how your sponsored child is benefiting from the good work your $20 monthly contribution helps make possible. Save the Children knows how to get the most out of every penny. In fact, your contribution, combined with others, helps provide programs that enable communities to nurture all their children. Call and say you'll join us. And one by one, we can quell the hunger, heal the sickness, and help give little children the chance to live and be children.
Become a Save the Children sponsor. Call 1-800-767-4500.
Welcome back to Miller's Law. When it comes to children, the expression "to err is human, to forgive is divine" seems very apt. Kids do from time to time screw up, and sometimes it's their fault and sometimes it's not. But what happens when a kid's mischief results in injury, property damage, or, heaven forbid, the loss of life? Can a parent be held liable for the child's actions? We take this subject up with a judge and with an expert in negligence. First, the Honorable Patty Jenkins Pittman is a trial judge with the Superior Court of Connecticut. Before Governor Lowell Weicker appointed Judge Pittman to the bench, she practiced both criminal and family law. Now, careful Court TV viewers will recognize Judge Pittman as one of our former commentators and part-time anchors. Second, Phil Corboy is also no stranger to Court TV, but we haven't seen him in quite a while. Phil is one of the country's best-known personal injury and product liability lawyers who handled the famous or infamous Tylenol tampering case. Phil's an old friend. He's, I'd say, my favorite elf.
Thank you, sir.
Now, let's start with basics. Is it true that a parent is liable for what the child does, whether it's hitting the batted ball through a glass window, Judge?
Well, if we were in England 200 years ago, I'd say no. But that's changed in many states, probably in most states now, up to a certain point. There are really three categories of situations, it seems to me, where children and their mischief can be imputed to that of the parent. First of all, usually it can't be for ordinary negligence, and the situation of the batted ball through the window is probably something that's ordinary negligence, garden variety stuff.
So you pay up just because you're a good neighbor, but that's about it.
Ordinarily, yes. But if you were sued because the ball accidentally happened to go through the window, you being the parent, then the answer is probably you won't have to pay under the law. The second situation is that the child has to be unemancipated, and that generally means that it's a minor child living at home. It can't be the child that's run away, out of your control, not anywhere around, or over a certain age. And finally, most states that have changed the old-fashioned common law by passing legislation of this type now impose a cap above which the parent, even if the other two situations exist, cannot be liable. And sometimes the cap is very low.
Yeah, I'm not so sure I would agree with that last, Your Honor. The statutes in most states are $1,000, $1,500. The function of those statutes is not to fine or punish the parents for the tort of the child. The function of those statutes is to deter and hope that the parents will take some control over their children. I also believe that there's a new wave that even if the child is emancipated, if the child has some type of disability, by child I mean offspring rather than minor, there are some 32, 35-year-old people living at home who have to be watched. And if a parent has control over an alcoholic, over an epileptic, over a muscular dystrophy who happens to have other problems in addition to the muscular dystrophy, the parent has an absolute duty to exercise ordinary care for the safety of third persons, even though that person may be an emancipated adult.
Well, let me give you a little situation. The kid next door, maybe it's a 12 or 14-year-old, he's playing with matches, and he burns down my garage. I come to you.
First question I asked, where did he get the matches?
From the kitchen drawer.
Well, was the kitchen drawer made available to him? The answer is yes and no. If you knew this child had a propensity for lighting matches in an area where somebody could get burned or something could happen, you have a duty to control the child. There are two things you have to... First of all, I'm making the assumption that the lighting of the match was an intentional act. Assuming it was an intentional act, the parent, having control of that unemancipated child, has not only, if he knows about the potential wrongdoing, and he has the ability to stop it, and he doesn't stop it, that parent can be held liable by either a judge or by a jury.
What do you mean the parent's got to know? The parent just leaves a box of matches out on the stove.
But did he know that that child was going to use them? If he didn't,
no.
And then the answer is probably not.
Kid's not a firebug.
Then the answer is probably not. But let's assume he left a gun there. And let's assume this child, I mean, every case is a different scenario. Just leaving matches in the drawer, no. Matches are not in and of themselves dangerous per se. But if you leave matches around a kid who's had trouble with matches before, then you should know, or under ordinary circumstances would be required to know.
What about that gun, though?
Well, a gun
the parents do keep a gun. The child knows there's a gun in the night table.
Let's assume that the child is a 17-year-old Eagle Scout, and he's been shooting guns all of his life and has never bothered anybody and shooting. There's nothing wrong with leaving a gun in the area of where a good, experienced, reasonably capable child is. However, if you leave a gun near somebody who has none of those adjectives, if you leave a gun near somebody who has the inability to appreciate the danger of a gun, a 5 or a 6 or a 7 or 8-year-old child, I certainly would think that the parents could be held liable on a negligent entrustment theory. You're entrusting or giving the opportunity of the child to use a gun.
Back away from the legalisms, what's the advice you give to a parent? A parent, let's say, who has a 17-year-old Eagle Scout, a mischievous 13-year-old, and a 6-year-old. I mean, what is the parent supposed to do?
There are three trends that I see in the law now that relate to what Phil was just talking about, dangerous instrumentalities. And you're quite right, matches generally don't fall into that situation. But the three that you see now are guns, liquor, and cars. And when you get any one of those three, and God forbid you get a combination, then I think the trend in the states is to look to the parent for, as you're saying, some sort of entrustment of the child around or with one of these objects, or negligent supervision of the child using these objects.
So one of the messages I'm clearly getting is, as we develop this area of the law, parents have to be more and more careful.
Absolutely.
Okay, we need to take a commercial break. When we return, your phone calls once again. The number 212-557-1301. Are you a parent concerned you may be sued for your child's recent prank in the principal's office that caused $1,000 in damages? Or are you planning to sue the parents of a 12-year-old who poured sugar in your gas tank and ruined the transmission? We've got the experts, and guess what? Their legal advice is free tonight. Stay with us.
Warning, your ordinary pillow causes snoring, restless sleep, even neck, shoulder, and back pain. Now there's a healthy solution. The anatomically designed support pillow. It supports your head and neck in natural alignment. Ordinary and down pillows don't support your neck and cause muscle tension while you sleep. Stop doing this to your neck. The support pillow supports your neck so your muscles relax and you breathe freely. Wake up without aches and stiffness.
My husband no longer snores.
I don't have the pain that I used to have when I slept on a down pillow.
Doctors sell similar pillows for $60. Call now and try the support pillow risk-free at the special low price of only $19.95. You'll also get a zippered washable cover, a $7 value, free. Stop discomfort now. Call 1-800-346-3800. That's 1-800-346-3800.
The minimum wage in Mexico is 58 cents an hour. The minimum wage in the United States is $4.25. Even though the American worker is the most productive in the world, the wage differential makes it impossible to compete with low-cost Mexican labor. The principal incentive to move the factories to Mexico is cheap labor. We are $4 trillion in debt. Millions of working Americans are the heart of our tax base. Individually, the American worker has no voice. If millions of us join together, we can stop these trade agreements that place the American worker at a tremendous disadvantage. Congress will soon vote on NAFTA. This agreement must be stopped now. Time is precious. Join us. By joining millions of citizens in United We Stand America, you do have a voice that Washington cannot ignore. To join, send your $15 check to the address on the screen or call the toll-free number. Have a say in our future as United We Stand America speaks for the American people.
We're talking about parental vicarious liability. That's a mouthful, isn't it? What does it mean? Parents who are sued for the criminal or negligent acts of their children. Joining me are the Honorable Patty Jenkins Pittman, a trial judge from Connecticut, and Philip Corboy, a well-known, very rich negligence trial lawyer from Chicago. Phil's a friend, so I can tease him.
I must have the wrong job.
Well, you took the robe, Judge. You took the robe. We've got a lot of phone calls. Let's talk to Julie out there in Toledo, Ohio.
Hi. My husband and I were involved in a car accident. Two 15-year-old kids stole a car, and I live in Ohio, and they live in Michigan. I was wondering what the options of we have regarding their parents and suing.
What do you think, counselor?
I don't know whether she said they stole a car.
They stole a car.
A stolen car.
Yeah.
Well, most states have statutes that if the owner of a car leaves a key in the ignition, and that car is stolen from a public highway, the owner of the car is responsible for the driver's activities. However, if such a statute did not exist, or the car was not taken from a highway,
or from the parent,
the parent probably is not responsible.
Is not liable.
Probably not.
Well, let me give you a twist on that. I see my son is.
By the way, you can't insure for an intentional act.
Yeah, for stealing. Right. Suppose I see that my son's wearing a Ralph Lauren jacket and listening to a stereo set, and I say, on the $1.50 allowance I give the kid every 6 months, he couldn't have bought that. It's stolen goods. Can the merchant come against me for the stuff my little one has shoplifted?
Well, you know, there's another interesting trend in the law. This doesn't directly answer your question, but it has even bigger implications. There is a trend in some states, particularly in California, to try to hold the parents criminally liable for shoplifting, for example, or to impose some sort of penal fine on them, as opposed to simply suing them to get the money or something like that. And it's a very interesting and some say unconstitutional trend in the law.
I noticed South Carolina has a statute that makes the parent pay the court costs of prosecuting the child.
Yes.
Well, let's go back to the civil part of it, though. That parent probably would not be responsible to the merchant unless the child was acting as the parent's agent, or again, unless the parent knew or should have known that the child was a thief and did nothing to stop him.
Well, maybe if it goes on for a while, the parent should know.
If he knew or should have known, but if all you do is find a jacket, no.
Let's talk to Mike from Cadillac, Michigan.
Yes, I was wondering how the law would apply to a daycare provider in the case of a child performing a quote-unquote bad act.
A daycare provider?
I'm not sure I understand the question, frankly. Can you tell us a little more about it?
Yes, my wife, she runs a daycare, and I was wondering if a child that she was supposed to be caring for had performed like broken a window or...
Okay, we got it now. What do you think?
All right, well, as I said before, ordinary kinds of negligence, the kinds of things that are really accidents as opposed to intentional or malicious or willful in some way, are ordinarily not acts for which the parent will then be liable. The child can still be liable. Now,
Yes.
most 5-year-olds are not
Can't
going to
pay.
have a big fund unless their piggy bank is somewhat large.
Let's talk to Elaine from Fayetteville.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi.
What's your question?
Actually, I just have a comment I thought maybe you could elaborate on. I'm really wondering, when does a child reach the point where they're responsible for their own actions? It seems that there's a trend in this country that people do not have to take responsibility for their own actions. And I think at some point you have to say, look, you did this, it's your responsibility, and, you know, parents shouldn't have to always take the heat.
Well, here comes the word according to Corboy.
In most states, a child is responsible for his acts between the ages of 7 and 14 if the finder of the fact, in a jury or a judge, finds that child was acting in a way that a child of that age should not act. After the age of 14, he's held to the same, in most states, he's held to the same degree of care as an adult. So let's assume a 14-year-old child is driving a car, and that 14-year-old child goes through a red light. That child is responsible for whomever he hits for running a red light. Now, the answer to this, and it's not as simple as it sounds, but one of the answers is that the people who have a potential for being sued should have insurance. And sometimes the act, either of the child or the parent, either an automobile policy or a homeowner's policy, will cover the acts of the person within the family unit if it is not an intentional act.
Now, quick, do you think the law is trying to impose more responsibility on people? Which is what the caller really said.
The law is trying to compensate the victim, is what the law is trying to do. And that's the main thrust of these statutes, it seems to me.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you, Phil.
Thank
We'll
you.
be back. I hope you'll both be back. In your case, Phil, when you grow up. And now it's Miller's time. I love that man, I really do. John Demoniuk is back on American soil, and many Americans are angry that we've let him back into this country. But Demoniuk is not a free man, a fact seemingly not understood by many reporters commenting on his return. You see, although his conviction in Israel for being Ivan the Terrible has been reversed, he has been stripped of American citizenship. Indeed, his readmission to this country only allows him to be present while he seeks to regain that citizenship. Although it's still unclear what Demoniuk did during the Second World War, it seems likely that he did make false statements when he originally sought admission to the United States following the war. And that typically is sufficient for deportation, as are his activities at 2 other death camps where some of the existing documents suggest he served the Nazis. So it's possible that when the next round of court proceedings are over, he still won't be a citizen and he may be deported. It's true that this business seems endless, but that's one of the prices of a legal system that really does try to get it right. There have been many mistakes in this case, some of them apparently committed by our own Justice Department. Thus, we should be patient about taking the time and effort to make sure that we were right to take away his citizenship, and that we will be right if we send him away again. That's the American way, and that is the way a good legal system should operate. Well, that's it for this edition of Miller's Law. Come on back next week. I'll be looking for you, and I'll be here. Good night.
Up next, stay tuned for Wednesday's edition of Primetime Justice.
Just once in your life comes the magic of your favorite music, played just the way you like it. For the first time ever, Time Life Music brings you Moonlight Sax. These are the greatest romantic melodies of our time, loved by millions. Moonlight Sax, lush, unforgettable music for your quiet hours. Award-winning Hollywood hits, plus today's most popular melodies.